Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Danna Olivo. Danna, welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I'm a growth strategist, a business growth strategist. I focus primarily on solo and micro entrepreneurs. What that means is it's businesses that are generally 10 employees or less. They making under $1 million a year. They've been in business anywhere from napkin stage up to 5 years.
Okay. And topic of conversation today is why are there so many failures early on? Happy to talk about that?
Sure. There's a lot of articles out there that we encounter on a regular basis. When I started my business, I did a lot of research because micro and small solo entrepreneurs have always been on my heart as far as helping them. I've had 2 failed businesses in my past. And when I did the research to find out the data, the statistics on that, there weren't a lot of data points that I could draw on to help me determine what I needed to do, with my small business. So because of the failures, I said, okay, there's so many small businesses out there that are failing, but the ones that are failing are your solo and micro entrepreneurs. The Small Business Association qualifies a small business as 500 employees or less. That's not a small business. Those aren't the ones that are failing. It's the ones that are just starting out. And primarily, they are failing not because of lack of capital necessarily or lack of good leadership or anything like that. They're failing primarily because they don't know what they don't know. They're uneducated. They have a good product or service, but they don't know how to build a business around that product or service. And that's what Marketatomy is here to do, is to help bring those resources to these entrepreneurs, these small business owners, so that they can learn what they need to in order to grow a successful business.
Thank you for that. I did notice that on your website, on your podcast website, you did a book review of the E-Myth. And I always recommend anyone, if they're in that kind of position where it's very, very young, I always recommend that as a go-to. Any thoughts on that spring to mind?
Well, Michael Gerber, he's got a revised version of that book, but he nails it right on point as far as small businesses are concerned and the growth of small businesses, and taking into consideration not jumping from a vision straight into building a website or straight into something that's going to cost a lot of money because you haven't laid the groundwork as far as that's concerned. With Marketatomy, we have an online learning academy called Marketatomy.Academy. And the entire platform is built on a 5-phased approach to business growth. And what those 5 phases involve is, first you see it. That's your napkin stage. That's where you see the vision, you want to do this, but you don't have a lot of details. That's something you want to do. The next is you have to prove it. That's where you go out and you find out, are people willing to spend money to buy my product or service? And how much competition is out there? And what is the price point that I can, get for this? Is it worth my time and energy? Do we even pursue this business? And then we move into the build it stage. That's where you build your actual business, your systems, your processes, your team. You actually start building that business model and incorporating. That's also where you start making your revenue. You can begin making your revenue. And then you move into the fund it stage. By the time the fund it stage comes around, you've already started getting some revenue, and you need that to go for qualified funding. Because there's not a lot of equity funders out there, or even investors, angel investors, that will invest in a company that is not in revenue already and have proven systems. There are some of them that will do that, but at that point, you're looking at giving up a good part of your business for them to back you. And then finally, we move into the grow it stage. That's where you start growing your business exponentially, because now you have the money, you have the business model in place, a proven business model, and now it's easier for you to grow that business. So those are the 5 phases of growth that we work with our clients through the e-learning environment, through our accountability measures, which is we have bi-weekly group coaching, we have bi-monthly mastermind programs, because we feel as though not only do you need to learn and interact, but you have to be held accountable.
Right, picking up on the second step that you were referring to, and also your initial research, have you got any thoughts or data regarding companies that get started, which are, because this references the market research part of it, companies that are proven, like, for example, someone goes into a plumbing business, we already know there's a plumbing demand, versus someone who is looking for a gap in the market where we really have no idea whether there's a demand for that service, and how that breaks down as the failure, in terms of failure of a business?
Yeah, definitely. If you get into an existing business, if you buy an existing business, there's systems and methodologies that are already in place that you can take advantage of that are going to help you succeed in business. But again, my first business I bought from, and it was an existing business that I bought, and it was a ceramic business. I did not know a lot. I had grown up doing ceramics, but I did not know it as a business. And so there was a huge learning curve there. So again, if you're going to buy a business, even if it's a franchise, you need to have some of that business knowledge, that marketing knowledge.
Picking up on what you said about the 2 failed businesses, are there things, what would you do differently now if you were in those businesses? What was the thing which, the topic of failure is very talked about online, and obviously some people don't, or try not to see it as a negative thing. But if you were to do something different and could identify where that failure occurred, what would you say?
I would say that my lack of knowledge of what I don't know is what caused me to fail. After my second failure, what I did was I went back to school. My son was in middle school, and I had a marketing background. I had worked 35 years within the architectural, engineering, construction market in between those 2 businesses, okay? I had a lot of experience on the marketing and business development side. What I didn't have is the experience on the operational side and the financial side. So when I went back to college and got both my degrees in MIS, which is database design, because I wanted to be able to systematize a lot of things, and then also in business marketing. Okay, so I learned a lot going back to school, but a lot of business owners can't go back to school, either the time commitment or the cost of going back to school. So that's why I wanted to bring this to the forefront as far as the e-learning environment is. It's the same thing as going back. You're learning the same things you're going to in your college-based courses, but the difference is it's not going to cost that much. Now, the other thing is these college-based, these courses that we are introducing through the e-learning environment is a 2-pronged approach. The way the courses are set up is there's a learning component. So you're learning about the subject matter, but at the same time, it's followed by a experiential interactive component. So after you've learned, you will have the tools and everything. You can sit down and you can actually put a plan together for your business. Rather than it becoming shelf help, you're actually planning and taking the time out.
Okay. Interested to know about the marketing background there, because one of the things which, at least in theory anyway, if you can market your business, if you are able to generate sales from it or for it, even if you have a bit of a dysfunctional business, which is not operating all that well, providing you can continue to get sales, that business can continue. Whereas, the operational side of things, I would think that you could perhaps hire people to do that. What are your thoughts on that perspective?
Yes, definitely. Coming from a strong marketing background, the way I am, yes, you can make sales by marketing your business, even if your business is segmented and it's not really running efficiently. The problem you run into when you jump into marketing without having systems in place and things like that is you take the chance of losing those customers in the gaps within your company. Right? As quickly as you get those customers, you may lose them because you're not meeting their expectations. So it's not that it can't be done. The problem is that you haven't identified who is your target audience and what are their expectations. I'm a firm believer that in the customer journey process and meeting those expectations at every touch point along the line. Now, those touch points, they extend farther than just the initial sales side. They extend into the operational side, the service side, the accounting side, everything that is you've got set up in within the business. Because ultimately what you want to do is you want to turn those customers, those prospects and those customers into raving fans on the back end who ultimately become your free sales force.
Yeah, I've also, I find that if you are able to grow a business purely with marketing, the problems within a business can also grow. So it's kind of like, even if you do start succeeding, the problems grow, like scale with the size of the business.
Exactly, because you reach those bottlenecks. If you don't have the systems and everything in place, if you haven't got a plan for carrying those customers through, there's bottlenecks, and that contributes even more so to losing those customers.
There are some people who think that you should try and do as little as possible as the owner, and start to delegate as quickly as possible. And there are obviously the opposite end of that is that when you're right at the beginning, you're almost doing absolutely every job role, because, I don't know, either you feel it's necessary or there aren't funds to kind of hire someone to do it. Have you got any thoughts on the two approaches there?
Oh, goodness. Yes. When you're first starting out, you're wearing many hats. And what happens when you're wearing many hats is you start suffering from what I call OPA. All right. OPA is you become overwhelmed, and then you become paralyzed, and then you start avoiding the situation, hoping that it's going to take care of itself. And by doing that, all you're doing is you're just creating more of a problem. So starting out, there are about 4 or 5 critical team members that you need to have, and they can be, virtual or, not necessarily employees. They can be, partners, strategic partners, whatever, and that's legal, CPA, accounting. You might need a virtual assistant. I've found that I have to really work with interns quite a bit because they're eager to learn and they amaze me with what they come up with as far as, ideas and things like that. So there's some critical things. And on the legal side, we've got, we've got a program called Legal Shield. I don't know if they have that over in the UK. Is that where you're from, Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not heard of it.
I don't know if they have that over in the UK, but Legal Shield is a monthly subscription, and you have access to qualified lawyers to do simple, projects. It's something that small businesses and solo entrepreneurs can afford.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of things that you can farm out, even though you say you don't have the money. Where I'm going with this is by skipping those steps, those systematic steps, what you end up doing is you're bleeding money because you're spending money on things that have not been tested and proven.
Well, you mentioned the reasons why you went back to college. Have you got some main highlight areas in terms of, I know you said it was operations generally, but what are the main pain points for someone perhaps who has rushed into their business and they've got a skill set, but they don't have a business owner skill set?
Well, first of all, going back to college was a hell of a lot harder than working. More time involvement, everything. But what fascinated me, I went back late in life. So a lot of my team members were much younger than me. So they kind of looked at me as the leader of the groups, you know. And in my college, which was University of Central Florida, they had implemented a system to where in your upper classes, every single class that you had a team environment. So you had to meet with them as well on the outside. So that's why it was just so hard. But what going back to school had done was it had forced me into an environment where we were actually building virtual businesses. So we were having to problem solve while we were working as a team, which was really fascinating to me because I learned so much through that. And then what happened is I also realized, okay, originally I went in under my business marketing degree and realized there's so much competition out there. I said I had set myself aside, apart from my other marketing majors. That's why I went for my MIS degree, the database design degree, because at the time that's, you know, databases is what, you know, so now I've been able to take that experience and build my own systems, my standalone systems to help my business.
So are you happy with the decision to go back into college? Do you feel like it was worthwhile?
I do think it's definitely worthwhile right now. At the time, I didn't have a MarketAtomy when I did it. At the time that I was in business myself, I mean, my second business was taken right out from underneath me. People that I had trusted, you know, that type deal. So, yeah, at the time I didn't have a MarketAtomy. If I had a MarketAtomy when I was in business, I probably wouldn't have failed the second time. You know,
So
I would have known to bring in those specialists that I need. I would have been able to get the education so I could find funding, you know, that type deal.
You mentioned the second business. Was that? I mean, the only kind of experience I have in relation to you know, the person who starts the business who gets fired from the business is like the Apple scenarios. Yeah. So is that kind of like a board?
It is.
You out type thing?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. And at that time, I had had an accident and everything, and I was tired. And I said, okay, you just take it over. You know, yeah, it didn't last very long after I left.
So what would you say to someone who, well, to ensure that that doesn't happen, what do you say to someone who's potentially...
Well, there's definitely ways that you could set up your board of advisors, directors, whatever. But the critical thing is setting up your shares. And I'm not an expert on the legalities of it or anything like that, but you never want to have an equal share split. Okay, if you've got partners, which I had partners at the time and it was 50-50, okay, you don't want that because it's easy for someone to take over. What you want to do is you want to set aside some for your funding partners. Should you bring on at least 30% of your shares should be set aside for funding partners. And then definitely you want to hold a controlling interest. If it's your company, you want to hold a controlling interest. So just ways that you can protect. But like I said, by far, I am not a specialist when it comes to it's lessons learned I've learned.
Well, I think I might be wrong about this, but I think that Mark Zuckerberg has like 51% of Facebook and says he's never going to sell that.
Yep. And that's exactly
majority share.
That's exactly it. And you've got your founder stock and you've got, you know, regular stock. Okay. Your founder stock, you don't split. you keep it, you know. It's just the other ones, if you split stocks or whatever, your founders don't want theirs split.
So you graduate. Did you create a business during college, or was it when you got out? And what did that look like?
Nope. When I graduated, I went back into the AEC industry. The reason I had gone back to school was not necessarily for business, okay, to start my own business. The reason I had gone back to school was because I had reached a level within the architectural engineering construction market that I couldn't go any farther without having my degrees, okay? So I went back to school to get those degrees so that I could move up the ladder within the AEC industry. What happened is when I went back, I was able to move quickly through the industry to the point where by the time I was laid off from this construction management firm, I had worked through every logistical cycle within the AEC environment, including, you know, before and after market, the product development side, the spec development side, the design side, and the construction side. So what happened is when I was laid off from this firm in 2009, the entire country was going through this recession that had hit everybody, especially the AEC industry. And the only country that was coming out of the recession faster than anybody was Brazil. And that's because first, they were a cash country at the time. And secondly, they had just won both the FIFA Games and the Summer Olympic Games. And so I knew what was getting ready to break loose down in Brazil. So as a result, what I did was I positioned myself to go into Brazil to create inroads for companies here in the US that were struggling, that wanted to break out internationally, but couldn't afford to do it on their own. And I would represent them at the sales table and get them into Brazil so that they could create those relationships with Brazilian firms in preparation for the games.
That is major. That is serious.
It's definitely a learning experience.
Forward thinking there.
Yes.
What gave you the idea or the insight to do that?
Well, there was really, you know, I had to decide, do I want to get back into the rat race here? Like you said, you know, your middle management were jumping around. I was a marketing director. I was, you know, business development director. And in this industry, everybody was jumping around. Everybody was jumping around. And the industry was really suffering. I think the construction and design industry suffered the most during this the last recession. And so I didn't want to get back in that rat race. And I happened to be introduced to a friend of mine who was Brazilian. And plus as a strategist, I do my research. You know, I do a lot of market research and everything. So I knew what was happening. And so having this Brazilian friend helped me navigate going internationally into Brazil. It was definitely a learning experience. I went with the US Commercial Services, and on an outbound mission, we went into São Paulo for 2 days to meet with the planning team for the FIFA Games. And then we spent 3 days in Rio talking about the Olympic Games, meeting with the Olympic team. At the same time, I found a representative down there. Actually, I met her here in Orlando, and she met me down in Brazil. She used to be an ex-congresswoman and for Rio. And so she had a lot of inroads. She was 81 years old at the time. And this woman, I hope I have half the energy she has when I'm 81 years old. But she, I would go down there about 4 times a year, spend about 3-4 weeks each time, meeting with clients, you know, talking, you know, contracts, things like that. And she would get me into a lot of the, through a lot of the gatekeepers by going to the parents of the people I wanted to meet. And that's how she was able to get through the gatekeepers.
So is that, that was a formed business, would you say? Or was?
Yes. Yeah.
So is that still around, that business, or?
No, I rebranded as Marketatomy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I rebranded. It was Danna LLC at the time, and I rebranded in 2016 as Marketatomy.
And that's your online course platform.
It started out as strictly consulting, okay? But with COVID, I always wanted to put it online, but with COVID, it kind of pushed that timetable up. Because when COVID started, a lot of my one-on-ones and my seminars and things like that had to stop. So I took advantage over the next 16, 18 months to build the online environment.
Do you still do consulting?
I still do, yes. But I like the fact that, I can get them to a point where they understand a lot more before they come to me, because I was wasting a lot of time going over simple business, technique, education, and things like that they can get through these online courses. So by the time they come to me, they're more prepared.
And so what does, I guess it sort of covers what I asked previously, but I mean, what does the typical inquiry look like for you? What is it that people struggle with the most?
Usually, most of the time, what it is they have reached ceiling. Okay, they've hit a ceiling that they can't seem to grow any farther, and they immediately think, okay, my sales team isn't doing their job, or something's going on, but they don't know what it is. This business health check assessment that I have developed is a result of the onboarding questions that I would ask my clients right from the very beginning. It's a series of about 120 questions that cover, like I said, 20 different KPIs. And what that does is it reveals to me where they are in their business. And by doing that, I can pretty much tell when and where those gaps are, and where our starting point is. And this assessment, right now, it's just a basic assessment that scores and things like that. But the next phase of it is going to go into an AI, incorporate AI, so that as they answer, it'll take them on a different journey.
So essentially, their current thinking has got them as far as they can go.
Right. Usually when I said that the 20 KPIs are interdependent, that is critical for small business owners to understand, okay? When you come to me and you say, okay, my sales are dropping, I don't understand why, I think my sales team are not meeting their goals, we need to overhaul our sales team. My first comment to them would be, are you sure it's the sales team? Because the sales team depends on the messaging. It also depends on your marketing materials. It also depends on your pricing and your product viability, product or service viability. So we have to look at all those interdependent relationships between those KPIs to make sure that it's not one of those other areas or a combination of all of them. You can't just put the blame on your sales team not meeting their goals. You also have to look at the team. Maybe they're not in the right position. Maybe you got the wrong people out there selling.
You touched upon the going into Brazil almost early. Have you got any thoughts about where the opportunities are today?
Well, honestly, my personal opinion is I think they're coming back to the US, in all honesty, okay? But again, with COVID, it's hard to determine. Every country has got its downfalls. I work with the UK quite a bit. I don't necessarily like working with China, or I work a lot with India. When it comes to where we're going, I think we have to look at the fact that we're going more internationally, but more on a virtual basis, okay? I'm getting a lot of my programming, my programming, my coding, everything, I'm getting through the gig economy. They may come out of India, they may come out of the UK, they may come out of the Panama. The gig economy has grown so fast, and a lot of your larger corporations are realizing that they don't need to bring back employees. They just as soon deal with the gig economy, create those relationships with those experts out there and do it on a per project basis, which is more feasible when you think about it. you know. So if anything, looking forward, I don't think it's so much countries or anything like that. I think it's going to be more across all borders with the virtual environment.
And dealing with people on a freelance basis almost.
Exactly. And you can create relationships. I've got people that I've worked with on Fiverr, on Upworks, different platforms that I've gotten to know. And I know, okay, if I need copy development, I'm going to go there. When you think about it, okay, you can hire a copywriter here, but it's going to cost you a couple $100, $300 to get creative copy done. Whereas you can go to Fiverr or Upworks or another gig economy, and I can get it for $40. It's just as good.
Mm.
It's just as good. The problem we're going to have here that I see in the US, okay, and I don't know about the UK yet, is twofold. First of all, our education system, because of COVID, okay, we were having a problem with our education system to begin with. All right. Because of COVID, I think we've taken several steps back as far as our kids and their ability, because not all kids can learn virtually. And so they lost a good half a year to 9 months trying to learn virtually, and that's not their forte. The other thing I think is we need to be introducing the aspect of entrepreneurship in middle school. When these kids are, 10, 11, 12, they need to start learning some of these entrepreneurial aspects, these skills, so that when they get into college or when they graduate from college, they are not only stuck with finding a corporate job. Your Gen Zers, your Gen Xers, all of them, they're not going into corporate America. They're remaining in the gig economy. They're remaining, freelance.
Yes, I was going to say it's a critique of the education system is that it produces employees.
It is.
So if you were to have to start today, I know it's a hypothetical, I don't expect for one moment that you have to restart, but for those that are starting, what would you do?
Well, let me take you back first to this time before I rebranded as Marketatomy, when I told you I went down to Brazil. One of the things that I'm adamant about is you have to have a strategy in place. Because when I went down to Brazil, I was down there for about 4 years. About 3.5 years in, I was hit by a rapid bus down in Rio, crossing the street to my apartment, which ended up, basically I was in and out of surgeries and everything for the next 8 months, 9 months. So my business pretty much halted because it was just me.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So, but the good thing that came out of that is while I was recuperating, this is where I had people who were in the AEC industry with me and had to start their own businesses because they couldn't find work, were coming to me saying, Danna, what am I doing wrong? I can't figure it out. I'm bleeding money, that type deal. And in the process of trying to work with them, I found out they had no idea how to build a business around their product or service. So in an effort to explain it to them is where I came up with the Marketatomy concept. Okay. And the Marketatomy concept is, and this is something that I think all business owners, when they're starting out, need to understand. Okay. The overall concept of a successful business, other than the 5 phases that I had indicated earlier. Okay. Think of your business as a human circulatory system or a human being. Okay. The heart of your business is your why. Why do you do what you do? What is it that you want your customer? It's your passion. Okay. What is it you want your customers to walk away with? The brain of your business is your playbook. It's your strategies. It's your product or service offering. It's everything that makes up the business. Now, in the human body, can the heart operate without the brain? No. You need them both. And the same in business. You need them both in order to push your marketing message out through the veins or the channels of your company to your body, which is your market, your niche market. Now take it one step further. You, as the business owner, are the soul of the business. You set the culture. You set, the dimensions of what your company is going to be and how people are going to look at that company. And so it's important that you remain ingrained in that company and not up here in the C-level, whereas you're out of touch with who your customers are. So if you keep that visual representation in mind, what you soon realize is you can have the best product or service in the world, but without customers, there is no business.
It's a marketing principle. You're not
Yeah.
you're not in the business of XYZ, you're in the marketing business. You're in the business of getting customers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I will follow up, because for those that are thinking, what business should I go into? I'm not sure I got an answer for them.
Oh, I've got a book that they can get from Amazon. It's only $3. Okay, it's called Marketatomy: What to Expect When Expecting a Business. And it gets into the Marketatomy concept, but basically what this book is it talks about how there's an entrepreneur in every single one of us. We just need to identify what it is. We all do something unique. It's just to figure out what it is. I also had a interview with another podcast guest the other day, and her book is Steal Your Skills from Corporate. And what that is basically, through all your corporate years, if you've been in corporate America for a while and they paid for your education, they paid for your certifications and everything, those are skills you can bring into your business.
Interesting. Well, yeah, high price point there, $3.
Yes.
I think you're pricing people out of the market there.
It's meant to just kind of get you thinking. I've got 5 books out on Amazon right now. The latest that just dropped is called Social or Sociopathic. And it's a co-authored book. And basically it talks about, now that we're in the virtual environment, the social sociopaths have come out of the woodwork, trying to take advantage of that virtual environment to get you to spend money on skill sets that they don't necessarily have. And you don't find that out until too late. So this book talks about how to avoid those and how to build a credible presence online so that you don't get caught in that social sociopath.
Sounds serious.
Yeah.
Any examples, not necessarily names, but any examples that you can think of by industry where there's social sociopaths?
Yeah, well, the political election here that we just went through, that's another one. Fake news. You've got the fake news, and you get wrapped up in that. All of that is what we call, sociopathic. They're trying to build themselves up. They're trying to show that, they're trying to build a credible presence around a fake story, or bragging is what I would call it. Right. So yeah, our political thing that we just went through was full of it.
Well, I look at a lot of that as procrastination in a way, or at least it's a form of it. Because if you are, let's say, focused on what you're trying to do, if you're focused on your business, any attention around politics is in a way detrimental to what you're trying to achieve, because there's a rabbit hole there that never ends. And you, instead of working on your business, you're looking at the latest news around politics.
And that's exactly it. And, even going down to Brazil, okay, when I first started going down to Brazil, I had all of my colleagues, everybody was telling me, you don't want to go down there. They don't respect women. You're not going to make it down there. And, like I said, I had somebody who had experience with Brazil. So I said, well, we'll find out. I get down there and the people are absolutely wonderful. You know, yeah, you have your dangerous areas like the favelas down there and everything that you have to kind of steer clear of. But I had enough people down there that kind of told me, steer clear of these areas, but if you're here, you're doing good, that type deal. So, but the news back here is reporting about everything going on in the favelas. At the time, they were going through the, what's the name of it? The police and the government were fighting against each other. I can't remember what it was called, all right? And all they hear back here in the US is all the infighting and everything else that's going on with the government and everything. And I kept telling them, guys, don't pay attention to the media so much. I said, the media over exaggerates a lot of things. You have to do your research. You have to find out. I went down there for 4 years, other than my bus accident. Didn't have any problems, and the people, I interacted with governors, I interacted with senators, I interacted with oil magnates, so a lot of them were very eager to work with us, especially when you're bringing in new technology in. So,
have you got any thoughts on exit strategies? So I know that you cover the systems what are your thoughts that spring to mind there?
Have one. You need to have an exit strategy. You need to have an exit strategy early. It doesn't mean it can't change, but consider the fact that if you were to take a trip, say from Florida to California, all right, wouldn't you map out where you're going to stay the night, what the route is, things like that, okay? Your exit strategy is California, right? It's the same thing with business. In order to plan and strategize the growth of your business, you got to know what are you working towards. If you're going to, for instance, my platform, my business health check platform, the ultimate exit strategy is I want to white label it. Okay, so it's going to be a product that's going to be white labeled. Okay, my business, I hope to pass on to my kids. We'll see. I may sell it. I may IPO it. Who knows? But right now, it's to pass it on to my kids.
Okay.
A legacy. Yeah. Ultimately, I want to get in front of Congress down the road. I'm starting the efforts now. I want to get in front of Congress. I want to pass a bill that will allow micro and solo entrepreneurs to be able to apply for incentives, government incentives, if they show before they get their business license, they have gone through a certification process so that they understand what is involved in starting a business.
Interesting. Well, my next question was going to be about what your goals are, but that sounds like a pretty lofty, well worth goal.
Yes.
Anything else to add? No,
I think that's it. Go to MarketAtomy, MarketAtomy.Academy. And you can go in and you can register and see, and there's no cost to register, and see the different courses that we have. We're adding to those courses constantly. So we're going to be bringing in new courses every time. Once you register, I will put you on a mailing list. So as a new course comes out, we just push it out to you. You can make your decisions, as far as that's concerned. You can also reach me through Marketatomy.com.
Okay. Danna, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it.